Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 58 of my story. So, after I got in that fight with my roommate, I started packing up my stuff because somebody came to my room and they was like, Bush, pack up your stuff. You're going to the shoe. And so I automatically started packing up my things. My roommates were upset and I packed up my things and the officer came up. And so this officer, I'm not going to say her name, but she kind of knew some people who were related to me. And me and her would talk all the time. She was like completely pro inmate. So when she found out who the person was that I actually got into it with, she was like, don't worry about it. I ain't going to be the one to write this up. I ain't writing you up. I'm not sending you to the shoe. And so she was like, so hopefully nobody else writes it up or go and tell on you, because as long as nobody don't, then you're good, because I'm not sending you there. So I was terrified, y'all. I went back to work and everything, and people started coming up saying, "What's up, Mike Tyson?" And I was like, "Oh my God, how do they know?" So the word traveled fast around the compound. Eventually, I got off of work, and everywhere I went and turned, they was like, "What's up? I heard what you did, Bush. Yeah, that's good. You did that to her." And I was like, "No, are you gonna say anything?" Because it's always that possibility. I've seen it happen before that somebody will go send an anonymous email, write up a cop out, send it across the street, and there it goes. They all coming across the street, raiding the room, taking somebody to the shoe. However, that was not my story. Nobody ratted me out. Talking about grace. Certainly me getting in trouble wasn't going to be worth it. So I just avoided this female altogether. Eventually, she hadn't got into it with everybody in our room and was kicked out. We booted her out the room. They moved her to another room. The room she moved in at that point, she stayed in trouble in there. She finally went home. So before any of you non-felons start asking me, what is the shoe? Let me go ahead on and tell you, the shoe is a special housing unit. So it's actually a jail inside the jail. It's a place that you don't want to go to. I'd never actually been there before, but from the stories I've been told you don't want to go there. So I didn't really get the experience of going to the shoe. That was the only incident I had my whole prison sentence. I managed to stay away from people who I thought were going to be troublemakers, as well as just communicate with people that I thought were more like myself, because it's, like I say, a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life when you're incarcerated. So you're surrounded by a lot of different individuals who are nothing like you at all. There's a lot of people suffering from a lot of things, including mental illness, when they're incarcerated, and unfortunately there's not a lot of help for those individuals. In my time of incarceration, I didn't make very many friends. I would say I was more likable than dislikable. However, I did have enemies. There were people who were beefed up with me and I didn't even know it. Like, apparently in prison they find reasons to not like you because you don't hang with them, you're not in their clique, and it's a lot of cattiness. They would be like, "Oh, she think her hair is good." Well, I didn't think my hair was good. My hair is good. Then they started the new rumor. The next rumor was I was telling people I had 9 kids. I'm showing them pictures to prove it. And they started saying, "Oh no, those are not even her kids. I heard those kids were for her ex." So now my kids are not even my kids while I'm incarcerated. The next thing was, oh, and her body is definitely not real. It's no way that's her body. She had to have work done. Absolutely never had any work done. So that's the type of stuff that certain people focus on while they're incarcerated, and that's why they stay at the bottom level. However, I didn't really get in any big beefs while I was incarcerated. I spent my time working out, trying to help people when I could, staying in communication with my family, and working. Working is the most important thing that you can do while you're incarcerated, especially right now since the First Step Act has passed. Girl, I'm not going to say her name or anything like that, but me and her, we kind of clicked up for a little bit. We would watch TV in the TV rooms. We were into that series that would come on TV, Married at First Sight. And so we would go to the TV room and we would watch that series. Well, this chick, she works in commissary. And so at commissary, that's your store. That's the prison store that you go to and you do all your shopping. And it has a lot of basic things that you can go to the store and get. In federal prison, it's totally different from state prison. I had all my makeup in prison. I had everything you can get from the drugstore and then some. from prison commissary. Back to this one chick. Me and her, we became really good friends over just watching that show in the TV room. And I remember one day they were calling her name, but I didn't know what was going on. You know, me and her, we had just really started talking maybe like some weeks before. And everybody was whispering things around the compound. And I didn't know if it was true or not. They were basically talking about, did you hear about her and the officer? And I was like, her and the officer. So this was my first experience. Because when I came to prison, I was completely green. I never knew that officers had inappropriate relationships with inmates. Well, this is one instance. So, some kind of way, she done went and her and this officer done had sex over at the facilities or commissary warehouse somewhere. And she done came back to the compound and ran off at her mouth and told people. And of course, people done ran off at their mouth and told other people. So you know what happens. Next thing you know, she getting called across the street. So I didn't know if this stuff was true or not until she personally was sitting with me and telling me, let me tell you something. He ate me out. He ate my ASS. And I was like, what? Like, I was terrified when she was telling this to me because I couldn't figure out, like, how can you be inside of here and the officers are allowed to do that to females? That was my intake, y'all. That was my complete thought because I didn't know anything about the Prison Rape Elimination Act at that time. I knew nothing about that. So when she's telling me this story, I am completely shocked. Then, next thing you know, of course, you know, you're in prison and they treat you like everything you do is wrong. So instead of this lady being protected, she was not protected. She was basically told that she could not work with this officer no more. And however, he was under investigation, but he was still allowed to come to the camp and work his job. A flawed system, to say the least. So in this time, do you think they stopped communicating? No, absolutely did not. And eventually, I would tell you multiple stories that came out on this one guy until I left prison. So when you're incarcerated, there is that chance that you could be victimized. So if you don't know what the Prison RAPE Elimination Act is, please look it up. It's a bill that was passed into law by then President Bush. It's supposed to protect not only females but males from misconduct or sexual conduct by an officer, somebody who's supposed to be looking over you. If you don't know that when you're incarcerated, you don't have the right to consent to sex, so that's why it's considered to be RAPE. When I joined Reform and went to their institute, that was one thing that I did bring up. That was something that I talked about that I would like to have revamped, that law, that bill, because I just feel like it's not enough. There's not enough laws protecting women who are incarcerated. It happens over and over and over again where you see the victimized being re-victimized all over again. Yeah, it's human nature. You may go to prison and you might like somebody. But for somebody to be looking over you and watching over you, to be able to just take advantage of you and there's no consequence, because a lot of times there is absolutely none. They get a slap on the wrist. They're told to resign from this position and they move on with their life to go and victimize somebody else in another facility across the state or across town somewhere. That's not fair. There has to be more penalties for the people who do this to women or to men.